I'm going to tell you something I have never said out loud before. Not to my students, not to the young men who came to sit with me in the mountains, not even to the few people in this world I would call close. I have one regret, just one. After 90 years of living, of loss and love and long silences and moments I would not trade for anything, there is one thing I wish I had understood sooner. One thing I kept getting wrong decade after decade, until the years I had left to fix it were running thin. And when I look at the people around me today, people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, I see the same mistake everywhere I look, in the way they walk, in the way they speak, in the things they chase, and the things they ignore. Stay with me for the next 20 minutes, because what I am about to tell you, I cannot prove with data or studies or the opinions of experts. I can only prove it with 90 years of living. And I believe, if you are honest with yourself, you will recognize it the moment I say it. My name is not important. I am an old man. People who know me call me the Silent Sage, not because I chose that name, but because somewhere along the way, silence became my most reliable teacher. I grew up in a small village, the son of a man who worked with his hands every day of his life and never once complained about it. I was married young. I had children. I lost people I loved. I made money and lost money and made it again. I spent 30 years of my adult life in a mountain sanctuary, living simply, far from everything the modern world considers essential. I am not telling you this to impress you. I am telling you this so you understand what I am about to share did not come from a book. It came from a life, a full one, with all the weight that carries. Now, the regret. I will not name it yet. I want you to arrive at it the way I did, slowly, through a story, because the mind that is told a truth directly often rejects it. But the mind that discovers a truth through a story carries it home and keeps it. When I was 34 years old, I had a neighbor, an older man, perhaps 60 at the time, which felt ancient to me then. His name was Davud. He had a small workshop where he repaired things, clocks mostly, old ones, broken ones, ones that other people had given up on. He was not a wealthy man. He was not particularly educated. He had no grand title, no important friends, no reputation beyond the few streets around his home. But I noticed something about Davud that I could not explain when I was young. People were drawn to him, not in the way people are drawn to the powerful or the beautiful or the entertaining. Quietly drawn, the way water moves toward a low place without being asked. His workshop always had someone in it, not always buying, not always talking, sometimes just sitting. An old woman from down the road who had nowhere particular to be. A young man who had just had an argument with his father and needed somewhere to put himself for an hour. A child who had wandered in and forgotten to leave. Davud never performed for these people. He never gave speeches. He never offered advice unless it was directly asked for, and even then he gave it briefly without drama. He simply worked on his clocks, and people sat near him, and something in them settled. I asked him once. I was perhaps 37 by then, already feeling the first pressure of a life not quite going the way I had planned. I asked him, "Davud, how is it that you seem so unbothered? You have so little, and yet you seem to have everything." He looked up from the clock he was working on. He thought for a moment. Then he said something so simple I almost missed it. He said, "I stopped fighting with time a long time ago. I let it do its work, and I tried to do mine." I nodded, as though I understood. I did not understand. I was 37 years old, and I was in a tremendous hurry, and what he said sounded pleasant, but impractical, the kind of thing a man says when he has given up on ambition. I spent the next 20 years proving, definitively, that I had not understood him at all. Here is what I spent most of my life doing. I was always preparing to live. Read that again, because it sounds harmless, and it is the most dangerous thing I will say today. I was always preparing to live. When I was in my 20s, I told myself, when I have enough money, then I will relax. Then I will enjoy things. Then I will be present with the people I love. When I reached my 30s and had more money, I told myself, when the children are older and need less from me, Then I will have time. Then I will slow down. Then I will do the things I actually want to do. When the children were older, I told myself, when I reach a certain position, a certain stability, a certain point of arrival, then I will begin to really live. And then I was 60. And then I was 70. And the then had never come. Not because life had refused to give it to me, but because I had spent every decade building a better launching pad and never launching. I had been so focused on the destination that I had walked through the entire journey looking down at my feet. I missed things. Not dramatic things. Not the things people mention in speeches about regret. I missed ordinary things. The smell of early morning before anyone else in the house was awake. The particular quality of afternoon light in autumn. The way my wife laughed when something surprised her. The feeling of a meal eaten slowly, without a thought in my head about what came next. These things were happening constantly, all around me, every day of my life, and I was present for almost none of them. Because I was planning, because I was managing, because I was preparing for a future that by the time I arrived at it looked nothing like what I had imagined and required none of the preparation I had made. This is my regret, not a single dramatic failure, not a person I wronged or a dream I abandoned. My regret is simpler and more total than that. I was alive for 90 years, and for perhaps 60 of them, I was not paying attention. Let me tell you what this costs, not in abstract terms, in real ones. It costs you your relationships, slowly, invisibly, without announcement. The people who love you do not need your grand gestures. They do not need the vacation you promised or the gift you planned or the conversation you kept meaning to have when things settled down. They need you to look at them, fully, without the part of your mind already moving to the next task. My wife, a woman of extraordinary patience and very little tolerance for self-pity, told me something once, late in our marriage, during one of the few arguments we ever had that left a mark. She said, "You are always here, and you are almost never present." I defended myself. I explained everything I was doing and why it mattered, and how it was all ultimately for us, for the family, for the future. She listened, and when I finished, she said simply, "I know. That is the problem." I did not understand her that evening. It took me another decade. What she was telling me was this: presence is not proximity. Sitting in the same room as someone while your mind is somewhere else is not the same as being with them. And a person who is never fully met, who is always speaking to a distracted version of the person they love, begins, very quietly, to feel alone. Even in a full house, even in a long marriage, even surrounded by people who would say, if asked, that they love them very much. This is one of the most common forms of loneliness in the modern world, and almost no one names it correctly. They call it distance, or growing apart, or simply the way things go after years together. What it usually is two people who were physically present for decades without ever quite arriving. When I look at people under 50 today, this is what I see. I see people who are genuinely trying, who work hard, who love their families, who want good things. I do not see laziness or selfishness or any of the things older generations like to accuse younger ones of. What I see is speed. An unrelenting, exhausting, culturally enforced speed that makes genuine presence almost impossible. Not because these people do not value presence, but because everything around them is designed to prevent it. The phone that is always within reach. The notification that arrives before the thought is finished. The habit of documenting an experience instead of having it. The constant low hum of comparison. Am I doing enough? Have I achieved enough? Is my life measuring up to the lives I can see displayed, curated, and filtered in every direction I look? This speed is not neutral. It has a cost. And the cost is paid quietly, over years, in the currency of moments that cannot be returned. I want to be careful here. I am not telling you to abandon your ambitions. I built things. I worked hard. I am not standing here at 90 telling you that none of it mattered. Some of it mattered very much. What I am telling you is this: The work is not the problem. The forgetting is the problem. Forgetting that the work is supposed to serve the life, not replace it. I want to go back to Dawood, the clock repairman. I visited him one last time when I was in my late 50s and he was already very old. His hands shook slightly by then, but he still worked. Still had people sitting quietly in his workshop for no particular reason. I sat with him for an afternoon, and this time I did not talk much. I simply watched him work. At some point he held up a clock, an old one, badly damaged, the kind most people would have thrown away, and he said, not to me particularly, almost to himself, "People bring me these because they have stopped working, but most of the time, nothing is truly broken. Something small got in the way, a piece of dust, a tiny misalignment, something that does not belong. You remove it, and the clock remembers what it was made to do." He set it down. It ticked. I thought about that for a long time on the walk home, and I think I am still thinking about it now. Most of us are not broken. We have simply allowed things to accumulate, obligations, distractions, the noise of other people's urgency, until we can no longer hear the sound we were made to make. We have forgotten, not what we want to do, but how it feels to simply be, without an agenda, without a next step, without the low-grade anxiety of a life always being managed toward some future point that keeps moving further away. I am not a man who gives lists. Life is not a list. But I will give you 3 things, simple ones, the kind that sound obvious until you try them honestly. First, choose one part of your day, just one, and protect it from usefulness, not productivity, not self-improvement, not even rest that is optimized for better performance tomorrow. Simply a portion of time that exists for no purpose other than your own experience of being alive in it. A walk with no destination, a meal eaten without a screen, a conversation that has no agenda. Start with 20 minutes. Guard it the way you guard the things you say matter most to you. Second, the next time you are with someone you love, put down whatever you are holding, physically and mentally, and look at them. Not to respond, not to solve, not to move the conversation efficiently toward its conclusion. Simply look. Notice what is actually in front of you. This sounds absurdly small. It is not small. It is, for many people, the hardest thing I will ask them to do. Third, once a week, ask yourself this question. If the life I am living right now were the whole of it, if nothing arrived later to make it better, nothing resolved, nothing upgraded, would I be able to say that I was here for it? Not that it was perfect, not that it was what I planned, simply that I was present for it, that I did not spend it in the waiting room of my own life. These 3 things will not solve everything, but they will begin something. And beginning, at any age, is always the correct response to having understood something true. I said at the beginning that I have one regret, and I want to be honest with you now, at the end, the way I wish someone had been honest with me at 30. The regret is not about what I failed to achieve. It is not about the years I spent in the mountains, away from the world. Those years gave me more than I can measure. It is not even about the specific moments I missed, because I cannot go back to count them accurately. The regret is simpler. It is this. For a long time, I treated my life as something that was about to begin, as a rehearsal for a performance that never quite came. And in doing so, I made the mistake of living in a future that never arrived, while the present, the only place life actually exists, passed by, largely unwitnessed. I do not tell you this so you will pity me. I tell you this because I see it happening to almost everyone around me who is still young enough to change it. You have something I no longer have, time, yes. But more than that, you have the knowledge of this mistake before it is finished making itself. You can adjust course not at 80, looking back, but now, looking forward, with enough road still ahead to walk it differently. The clock repairman was right. Nothing is broken in you. Something small has gotten in the way. Remove it, and you will remember what you were made to do. If these words found something true in you tonight, leave your mark on this video. Not for me, for the next person who needs to hear it. And stay close. The old man has more to say. Peace to your home, and peace to whatever moment you return to after this one.